Admiral Zexthera of the Galactic Confederation Navy stared at the holographic display with growing unease. 3 red dots blinked ominously at the edge of the Sol system, marking the last known positions of vanished fleets. The Krillian Armada, 200 ships strong. The Vorthan Battle Group, 300 vessels of the line. Most recently, the Pride of the Nexari Empire, 500 warships that had simply ceased all communication 48 hours ago. "Show me the pattern again," Zexthera commanded, his forearms gesturing at the tactical display. The hologram zoomed in on Earth's solar system. Each fleet had approached from a different vector, yet all had disappeared at roughly the same distance from the third planet. No distress signals. No debris fields. No energy signatures indicating massive battles. They had simply vanished as if they had never existed. Admiral, his tactical officer, Commander Yilnara, spoke hesitantly. "Perhaps we should reconsider our approach. The humans may possess weapons beyond our understanding." Zexthera's mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among his species. "Commander, these are humans we're discussing. They only achieved faster-than-light travel 60 years ago. Their most powerful weapons are crude fusion devices that would barely scratch the paint on our smallest escort vessel." The bridge fell silent. Everyone present had read the intelligence reports. Earth was a backwater world, inhabited by a species that had barely crawled out of their gravity well. They possessed no energy shields, no plasma weaponry, no quantum computers. Their ships were primitive chemical rockets and early fusion drives. By all accounts, a single Confederation destroyer could blast their entire planet in an afternoon. Yet 3 massive fleets had approached Earth and simply disappeared. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth. It's on an open channel, directed at us specifically." "Impossible," Zexthera snapped. "Our stealth systems are active. They shouldn't even know we're here." "Nevertheless, sir, the transmission is coming through. It's in perfect galactic standard." The Admiral's skin changed color, cycling through the spectrum that indicated deep thought among his people. "Put it through." A crackling voice filled the bridge, speaking with an accent that was unmistakably human despite the perfect pronunciation of their language. "Greetings, Admiral Zexthera of the Confederation vessel Stellar Dominion. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force. We know you're out there, and we know why you've come." Several bridge officers exchanged glances. The human had not only detected them but knew their ship's name and the Admiral's identity. Information that should have been impossible to obtain. The voice continued, "We've been monitoring your approach for the past 6 standard days. We're also aware that you're here to investigate the disappearance of the previous fleets. We'd like to invite you to send a diplomatic shuttle to Earth. We have much to discuss." "This is clearly a trap," Commander Yilnara whispered. "They're trying to lure us closer so they can deploy whatever weapon they used on the others." Admiral Zexthera studied the display showing Earth. The small blue-green world looked peaceful enough. No massive orbital defense platforms. No energy readings indicating planet-killing weapons. Just a modest collection of space stations and what appeared to be mining operations in the asteroid belt. "Admiral," the sensor operator called out, "I'm detecting something unusual. There are objects moving in the outer system, but they're not showing up clearly on our scanners. It's as if they're there but not there." "Elaborate." "Sir, it's like looking at shadows. I can detect mass displacement and gravitational effects, but the objects themselves seem to be bending light and sensor beams around them. They're practically invisible." Zexthera felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. Cloaking technology of that sophistication was beyond even the most advanced Confederation worlds. The few species that possessed true invisibility were ancient races that had long ago withdrawn from galactic affairs. "How many objects?" he asked quietly. "Unknown, sir. Could be dozens. Could be hundreds. They're maintaining position throughout the system, but I get the feeling they're watching us." The human voice crackled through the speakers again. "Admiral, we understand your concern. You're wondering how a primitive species like humanity could pose a threat to your advanced fleets. The answer is simpler than you think, but it requires a conversation. Will you accept our invitation?" Admiral Zexthera found himself facing an impossible choice. Advance and, potentially share the fate of 3 missing fleets, or retreat and admit that a species barely out of its technological infancy had somehow bested the greatest military powers in the galaxy. Neither option appealed to his warrior's pride. Prepare a diplomatic shuttle, he ordered finally. I'll go myself. Sir, I must protest, Commander Yilnara began. Your protest is noted and overruled. If the humans wanted us dead, I suspect we'd be dead already. Whatever happened to those fleets, it wasn't a conventional attack. As the shuttle bay prepared his transport, Admiral Zexthera couldn't shake the feeling that he was about to uncover a truth that would change everything the galaxy thought it knew about humanity. The question was whether the truth would save his fleet or doom it to the same mysterious fate as the others. The diplomatic shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere with Admiral Zexthera aboard, flanked by his 2 most trusted bodyguards. As they broke through the cloud cover, the Admiral pressed his face to the viewport, expecting to see a world bristling with defensive installations and evidence of advanced technology. Instead, he saw cities that looked surprisingly ordinary. Gleaming towers of glass and metal, yes, but nothing that suggested weapons capable of making entire fleets vanish. The shuttle was directed to a landing pad in what the humans called New Geneva, a city built around the old United Nations headquarters. Captain Sarah Chen was waiting for them as they disembarked. She was smaller than the Admiral had expected, barely reaching his lowest shoulder, with graying hair and laugh lines around her eyes. She wore a simple blue uniform with minimal decoration, nothing like the ornate military regalia common among galactic civilizations. "Welcome to Earth, Admiral," she said, extending her hand in the curious human greeting ritual. "I hope your journey wasn't too uncomfortable." Zexthera tentatively touched her small hand with one of his own appendages. "Captain Chen, I must admit I'm curious about how you detected our approach." "Our stealth systems are considered the finest in the Confederation." Chen smiled, an expression the Admiral had learned indicated pleasure among humans. "Oh, we've had some help with that. Please, follow me. There's someone I'd like you to meet." They walked through corridors lined with what appeared to be historical displays. The Admiral noticed weapons and artifacts from dozens of different alien species, all carefully preserved and labeled. Many he recognized from civilizations that had disappeared from galactic records thousands of years ago. "Captain," he said slowly, "where did you acquire these artifacts?" "Gifts," she replied simply. "From friends who prefer to remain anonymous. At least, until now." They entered a large conference room with a massive window overlooking the city. But what caught the Admiral's attention wasn't the view outside. It was the figure standing by the window, tall and elegant, with features that seemed to shift slightly when viewed directly. The being wore robes that appeared to be woven from starlight itself. "Admiral Zexthera," Captain Chen said, "I'd like you to meet Ambassador Luminary of the Voidwalkers." The Admiral's 4 hearts nearly stopped beating. The Voidwalkers were legends, ancient beings who had supposedly transcended physical existence millions of years ago. Most galactic scholars considered them myths, stories told to explain the ruins of impossibly advanced civilizations found scattered across the galaxy. The Voidwalker turned, and, when it spoke, its voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Admiral, your confusion is understandable. My people withdrew from galactic affairs long ago, growing weary of the endless cycles of conquest and domination that younger species seem to favor. But, the humans," Zexthera managed to say, "they're so primitive. How could you possibly be working with them?" The Voidwalker's form seemed to shimmer with amusement. "Admiral, your intelligence reports are accurate about human technology, but completely wrong about human nature. Tell me, what do you know about their history?" "They're violent, warlike, constantly fighting among themselves. They've only recently achieved planetary unity and space travel. By all metrics, they should be centuries away from being a significant galactic power." Captain Chen moved to a wall display that showed images of Earth throughout history. "Admiral, it's true that we've had our share of conflicts. But, what your intelligence services missed is what we learned from those conflicts." The display showed scenes of human cooperation. Rescue workers pulling survivors from disasters. Medical teams treating anyone regardless of their background. Scientists sharing discoveries freely across national boundaries. "You see," Chen continued, "we learned something that most galactic civilizations never figure out. True strength doesn't come from having the biggest guns or the most advanced technology. It comes from working together, from building alliances, from helping others even when there's no immediate benefit to yourself. The Voidwalker gestured, and the room's lighting dimmed as holographic displays appeared around them. When humanity achieved faster-than-light travel, they did something unprecedented. Instead of immediately trying to conquer or exploit other worlds, they sent peaceful envoys. They offered aid to struggling colonies. They shared their medical knowledge freely. Admiral Zexthera watched in fascination as the holograms showed human ships arriving at various worlds. In every case, instead of demanding tribute or establishing military bases, the humans had offered assistance. They helped terraform barren worlds, provided disaster relief, even mediated disputes between hostile alien factions. This caught our attention, the Voidwalker continued. For the first time in eons, we observed a species that seemed to have learned the lessons of civilization without first nearly destroying itself. We decided to make contact. But, what happened to the fleets? The Admiral demanded. 3 armadas don't just disappear. Captain Chan's expression grew serious. They're safe, Admiral. All of them. Every ship, every crew member. But, they've been relocated. Relocated? The Voidwalker waved its hand, and a new hologram appeared, showing a beautiful star system with multiple habitable worlds. A pocket dimension, you might call it. A place where aggressive civilizations can be contained until they're ready to join the galactic community as peaceful neighbors. You mean they're prisoners? Not prisoners, Chen said firmly. Students. The Voidwalkers have created a perfect environment where these fleets can learn what humanity learned the hard way. That cooperation is stronger than conquest. That diversity is more valuable than uniformity. That helping others ultimately helps yourself. The Admiral stared at the display. The relocated fleets were shown living peacefully, their crews working together on various projects. Former enemies were collaborating, sharing knowledge, building something new and beautiful. How long will they be kept there? Until they're ready, the Voidwalker replied. Some civilizations learn quickly. Others take generations. But, they all learn eventually. And, when they do, they return to the galaxy as allies rather than conquerors. Admiral Zexthera felt his worldview crumbling. Everything he had been taught about power, about military might, about the natural order of galactic civilization, was being turned upside down. And, if they refused to learn? Captain Chen and the Voidwalker exchanged glances. Admiral, Chen said softly, in 10,000 years of trying, we've never encountered a species that couldn't eventually understand the value of peace. It just takes time, patience, and the right teachers. The Admiral realized that humanity hadn't defeated 3 fleets through superior firepower. They had defeated them through something far more powerful and far more dangerous to the established galactic order. They had offered them a better way to live. Admiral Zexthera spent the next 3 days on Earth, and each revelation shook him more deeply than the last. Captain Chen had arranged for him to tour various human facilities, but these weren't the military installations he had expected to see. Instead, she showed him hospitals where alien refugees received free medical care, research centers where human and alien scientists worked side by side, and schools where human children learned alongside young beings from dozens of different species. This is impossible, he muttered as they watched human doctors performing surgery on a wounded Thakari warrior. The Thakari were known throughout the galaxy for their aggression and xenophobia, yet here one lay peacefully under anesthesia while human medical staff worked to save his life. His ship was attacked by pirates near Proxima Centauri, Chen explained. We found him drifting in an escape pod, near death. He's been here for 2 months now, recovering. But, the Thakari hate all other species. They believe contact with aliens pollutes their racial purity. Chen smiled that enigmatic human smile. That's what he believed when he arrived. He screamed threats at our medical staff for the first week. But, it's hard to maintain hatred for people who are saving your life without asking for anything in return. They moved to another section of the hospital where the same Thakari warrior was now mobile, walking slowly down a corridor with the aid of a human physical therapist. The Admiral watched in amazement as the alien, who should have been plotting escape or revenge, instead seemed to be engaged in casual conversation with his human caregiver. He's been asking questions about human society, Chen said quietly. Wants to understand how we manage to cooperate across so many different species. Yesterday he asked if he could send a message to his homeworld, telling them what he's learned here. As they left the hospital, Admiral Zexthera found himself struggling with concepts that challenged everything he thought he knew about interspecies relations. Captain, I need to understand something. You say the Voidwalkers chose to work with humanity because of your peaceful nature, but your history is filled with warfare. You're absolutely right, Chen replied. We fought constantly. World wars, civil wars, religious wars, territorial wars. We nearly destroyed ourselves several times over. But that's exactly why we understand something that species like yours missed. Which is, war doesn't work. Not in the long term. Every conflict we fought taught us that lesson a little more clearly. We learned that the only way to achieve lasting peace was to make our former enemies into allies. Not through conquest or subjugation, but through genuine cooperation and mutual benefit. They arrived at what appeared to be a diplomatic complex, but, unlike the grand marble halls typical of galactic government buildings, this one felt warm and welcoming. The corridors were filled with beings from hundreds of different worlds, all moving freely and interacting peacefully. This is our integration center, Chen explained. When new species make contact with us, this is where they come to learn about the galactic community. Not the community as it exists now, with its constant warfare and territorial disputes, but the community as it could be. Admiral Zexthera observed groups of beings from traditionally hostile species working together on various projects. Krillians and Nexari, mortal enemies for centuries, were collaborating on what appeared to be a star map. Vorthan engineers were teaching quantum mechanics to a group of attentive students from a dozen different worlds. How do you get them to cooperate? We don't get them to do anything, Chen replied. We simply provide an environment where cooperation is more rewarding than conflict. We share our knowledge freely, we help solve their problems, and we ask for nothing in return except that they consider a different way of thinking. They entered a conference room where a presentation was in progress. A human scientist was explaining something called collaborative resource theory to an audience of alien diplomats and military officers. The Admiral recognized several faces from wanted posters throughout Confederation space. Dr. Martinez is explaining how resource sharing creates exponential benefits compared to resource competition, Chen whispered. It's mathematics, not philosophy. When civilizations work together, everyone gains more than they lose. Admiral Zexthera listened as the human scientist presented equations and models showing how cooperative behavior led to rapid technological advancement, improved quality of life, and sustainable growth. The mathematics were undeniable, yet they contradicted everything the Confederation had taught about the necessity of competition and dominance. During a break in the presentation, Chen led him to a quiet observation deck overlooking the city. Admiral, I want to show you something that might help you understand our perspective. She activated a holographic display that showed Earth from space, but with additional information overlays. This is our planet 60 years ago, just before we achieved faster-than-light travel. The hologram showed a world divided into competing nations, armed with enough nuclear weapons to destroy all life several times over. Military spending consumed vast resources while poverty and disease ravaged much of the population. We were on the brink of extinction, Chen said soberly. Climate change, nuclear proliferation, resource depletion, political instability. Every expert predicted we had maybe 50 years before complete civilizational collapse. The display shifted to show Earth as it existed today. Clean energy-powered gleaming cities. Vast nature preserves had been restored. The orbital infrastructure was impressive but clearly designed for peaceful purposes rather than military dominance. What changed? The Admiral asked. We realized that our problems were too big for any one nation to solve alone. Climate change didn't respect borders. Disease outbreaks affected everyone. Economic instability in one region created chaos everywhere else. We had to work together or die separately. She paused the display on an image of the United Earth government signing ceremony. It took 20 years of negotiation, compromise, and sometimes bitter arguments. But we learned that our differences made us stronger, not weaker. Different cultures brought different solutions to problems. Different perspectives helped us see opportunities we would have missed on our own. Admiral Zexthera studied the images. But how does this relate to the disappearing fleets? Because we see the galaxy making the same mistakes we almost made. Endless warfare over resources that could be shared. Xenophobia that prevents the cooperation necessary to solve galactic-scale problems. military spending that diverts resources from research and development that could benefit everyone. Chen activated a new display showing various galactic civilizations. The Krillian Empire is facing ecological collapse but refuses to accept help because it would mean admitting weakness. The Nexari are dealing with a plague that's killing millions, but they won't share medical data with potential rivals. The Vorthans have developed fusion technology that could solve the energy crisis for dozens of worlds, but they keep it secret to maintain military advantage. The Admiral recognized the accuracy of these assessments. Each civilization was struggling with problems that had solutions readily available from their neighbors, but pride and mistrust prevented cooperation. The Voidwalkers offered us a choice, Chen continued. We could watch as the galaxy tore itself apart through endless conflict, or we could try to teach the same lessons we learned. But teaching requires students who are willing to listen. And if they're not willing? Then, they get a temporary timeout in the pocket dimension until they are. It's not punishment, Admiral. It's intervention. Like stopping a fight between children until they're ready to play nicely together. Admiral Zexthera realized that he was witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. Not conquest disguised as diplomacy, not the usual cycle of rising and falling empires, but a genuine attempt to break the pattern entirely. And the most terrifying part was that it seemed to be working. On his final day on Earth, Admiral Zexthera was granted an unprecedented privilege. Captain Chen escorted him to a secured facility hidden deep beneath the integration center, where he would witness something no hostile alien had ever seen, the actual process of fleet relocation. The underground chamber was vast, filled with technology that seamlessly blended human engineering with Voidwalker innovations. Crystalline structures pulsed with energy that seemed to exist in more dimensions than the Admiral's eyes could properly process, while human technicians monitored displays showing incomprehensible streams of data. We received word this morning, Chen explained as they descended into the observation area. The hegemony of Zarkoth has dispatched their Grand Armada toward Earth. 800 ships, including their flagship dreadnought. They're currently 3 days out from our solar system. Admiral Zexthera felt his blood chill. The hegemony was one of the most ruthless civilizations in the galaxy, known for enslaving entire species and strip mining conquered worlds. Their Grand Armada had never been defeated in open combat. 800 ships, he whispered. Captain, surely even with Voidwalker assistance, that's too many to simply relocate? Chen's expression remained calm. Admiral, you're still thinking in terms of military force. Watch and learn. The main display activated, showing the approaching hegemony fleet in real time. The ships moved in perfect formation, their dark hulls bristling with weapons designed for planetary bombardment. At their head flew the dreadnought Eternal Dominion, a vessel so large it could be seen with the naked eye from orbit. Initiating contact protocol, announced a human technician. Admiral Zexthera expected to see weapons charging or defensive systems activating. Instead, he watched as Earth transmitted a simple communication toward the approaching fleet. The voice that spoke was unmistakably human, but it carried an undertone that seemed to resonate with something deeper than sound. Hegemony Grand Armada, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force. We are aware of your approach and your intentions. We extend an invitation for dialogue. The response from the hegemony was immediate and predictable. Primitive humans, you will surrender unconditionally or face annihilation. We come to claim your world and enslave your species. Prepare for conquest. What happened next defied everything Admiral Zexthera understood about space combat. Instead of shields rising or weapons powering up, the human facility began to hum with a strange harmonic frequency. The Voidwalker technology responded, creating patterns of energy that seemed to bend space itself around the chamber. We're not going to fight them, Chen said quietly. We're going to show them what they really want. The display shifted, and, suddenly, the Admiral could see into the minds of the hegemony crew members. He saw their thoughts, their fears, their dreams. The fleet commander, Overlord Vraktar, appeared to be a typical hegemony supremacist, driven by hatred and conquest. But, beneath that surface, the Admiral could perceive something else: deep loneliness, fear of inadequacy, and a desperate need for respect and recognition. The Voidwalkers taught us something profound about consciousness, Chen explained. Every aggressive impulse comes from unmet needs. Every desire to dominate others stems from feeling powerless yourself. Every act of cruelty is an attempt to escape from pain. The technology began to project something toward the approaching fleet. Not weapons fire or defensive barriers, but images. Visions of what the hegemony worlds could become if they chose cooperation over conquest. Cities where different species lived and worked together. Research stations making breakthrough discoveries. Planets being healed from the damage of industrial exploitation. You're showing them their own potential, the Admiral realized. More than that. We're showing them how to achieve it. The display now showed individual crew members throughout the hegemony fleet. Soldiers who had been trained from childhood to hate and kill were seeing visions of themselves as healers and builders. Engineers who had spent careers designing weapons of mass destruction were witnessing themselves creating technologies that could restore ecosystems and cure diseases. Admiral Zexthera watched in fascination as the fleet's formation began to waver. Ships that had maintained perfect military discipline for decades were drifting out of position as their crews became absorbed in the visions Earth was transmitting. "This is impossible," came Overlord Vraktar's voice over the communication channel, but the aggression was gone, replaced by confusion and something that might have been hope. "These images, they're not real. They can't be real. They're as real as you choose to make them," Chen replied. "Every vision we're showing you is based on actual events from Earth's history or from worlds that have joined our alliance. We're not offering you fantasy, Overlord. We're offering you a blueprint." The Admiral could see the exact moment when the hegemony fleet's resolve crumbled. It wasn't due to superior firepower or technological intimidation. It was the simple realization that everything they had been fighting for could be achieved more easily through cooperation than conquest. "But, our society," Vraktar's voice was now barely a whisper. "Our entire culture is based on strength through domination. Without conquest, what are we?" "You're beings with incredible potential," Chen answered. "Your species has developed remarkable engineering capabilities, your military discipline could be channeled into disaster relief and exploration, your strategic thinking could help solve galactic-scale problems. You don't need to stop being strong. You just need to use that strength to build instead of destroy." The display showed the moment of decision. Admiral Zexthera watched as 800 warships, vessels designed for death and destruction, powered down their weapon systems simultaneously. Not in surrender, but in acceptance of something better. We would like to learn more," Overlord Vraktar said, his voice filled with an emotion the Admiral had never heard from a hegemony commander, hope. "Welcome to the galactic community," Chen replied warmly. "The real galactic community, not the one built on fear and competition. Please proceed to the coordinates we're transmitting. You'll find representatives from dozens of worlds waiting to help you begin this transition." As the hegemony fleet changed course toward the pocket dimension, Admiral Zexthera finally understood what he had been witnessing. This wasn't conquest or military defeat. It was the most sophisticated form of therapy imaginable, applied on a civilizational scale. "The missing fleets," he said slowly. "They're not prisoners. They're patients." "In a sense, yes," Chen agreed. "Every aggressive civilization in the galaxy is suffering from the same disease, the belief that survival requires the destruction of others. We're simply providing the cure." The Admiral looked at the peaceful expressions on the faces of the hegemony crew members as their ships disappeared into the dimensional portal. They looked like beings who had been carrying an impossible weight and had finally been allowed to set it down. "And if my fleet refuses treatment?" Captain Chen turned to face him directly. "Admiral, what do you think would happen to your civilization if you could solve your problems through cooperation instead of conquest? If you could trade freely with former enemies? If you could focus your resources on exploration and discovery instead of warfare?" Admiral Zexthera tried to imagine the Confederation at peace, and found the vision almost too beautiful to contemplate. No more constant border wars. No more fear of invasion. No more young soldiers dying for territorial disputes that ultimately benefited no one. It would be paradise, he admitted quietly. "Then, you already understand the treatment," Chen said with a smile. "The question is whether you're ready to begin." 6 months later, Admiral Zexthera stood on the bridge of his flagship, but everything had changed. The Stellar Dominion now flew alongside ships from 17 different civilizations, all working together on the largest scientific expedition in galactic history. Where once he had commanded through fear and rigid hierarchy, he now led through inspiration and collaboration. The transformation hadn't been easy. When he returned to the Confederation with his report, the reaction had been explosive. Half the High Council called him a traitor and demanded his immediate execution. The other half branded him insane and recommended psychological evaluation. But Admiral Zexthera had been prepared for this reaction. "Show them," he had said simply. Using communication technology provided by the Voidwalkers, he transmitted the same visions that had converted the hegemony fleet. Not images of conquest or submission, but possibilities. The Confederation Council saw themselves as they could be: explorers instead of conquerors, scientists instead of soldiers, builders instead of destroyers. The debate that followed had lasted for weeks. Traditional military leaders argued that cooperation was a sign of weakness, that the galaxy was too dangerous for such idealistic nonsense. But younger council members, those who had grown tired of endless warfare, began to ask different questions. What if the humans were right? What if there was a better way? The breakthrough came when Ambassador Rilneth of the Outer Colonies spoke before the full council. Her worlds had been devastated by a century of border wars, and her people were dying from industrial pollution caused by weapons manufacturing. "We have tried conquest," she said quietly. "We have tried dominance. We have tried every military solution imaginable. Perhaps it's time to try something else." The vote was closer than anyone expected: 847 in favor of joining the Human Alliance, 832 against. But it was enough. Now, as Admiral Zexthera watched his mixed-species crew working seamlessly together, he marveled at how much they had accomplished in such a short time. The Confederation's military spending had been redirected into research and exploration. Former weapons factories now produced medical equipment and terraforming technology. Soldiers had become teachers and engineers. Admiral, his new science officer, called out. Lieutenant Commander T'Challa was a young Nexari who had once served on one of the fleets that had disappeared near Earth. She had spent 4 months in the pocket dimension, learning cooperation and returning as an enthusiastic advocate for the new way of thinking. "What is it, Commander?" "We're receiving a signal from the Deep Space Monitoring Station." "It's unusual, sir." The main display activated, showing a massive object moving toward their galaxy from intergalactic space. It was clearly artificial, easily the size of a small moon, and it was transmitting what appeared to be a warning message in hundreds of different languages. "Can you decode it?" Admiral Zexthera asked. "Already working on it, sir." "It appears to be from something called the Harvester Collective. They're announcing their intention to strip mine our galaxy for resources. Estimated time of arrival, 6 months. A chill ran through the bridge crew. The Harvester Collective was a legend, a nightmare story told to frighten young cadets. According to the tales, they were a machine intelligence that consumed entire galaxies, converting all matter into raw materials for their ever-expanding fleet. "Sir," Commander T'Challa continued, "the message indicates they've already consumed 17 galaxies. They view organic life as an inefficient use of resources. Under the old system, this would have triggered panic and a massive military buildup. Every civilization would have retreated to their home systems, building defenses and preparing for a hopeless last stand. The galaxy would have torn itself apart trying to prepare for an enemy that couldn't be defeated through conventional warfare." But Admiral Zexthera found himself thinking like a human. "Open a channel to the Earth Defense Force," he ordered. "And patch in all Alliance members. We need to discuss this situation." Within hours, representatives from over 300 worlds were connected through the quantum communication network. Captain Chen, now promoted to Admiral in recognition of her role in transforming galactic civilization, appeared on the main display alongside the Voidwalker ambassador. "Admiral Zexthera," Chen said warmly, "we've been monitoring the Harvester transmission as well. Interesting challenge." "Admiral Chen, with respect, this isn't a challenge. This is extinction. The Harvester Collective has the firepower to sterilize every world in the galaxy." "You're thinking in terms of military solutions again," the Voidwalker interjected, its form shimmering with what might have been amusement. "Tell us, what do you know about the Harvester's motivation?" Commander T'Challa checked her database. "According to the legends, they're seeking to maximize efficiency in resource utilization. They believe organic life is wasteful and chaotic." "Exactly," Chen said with a smile that the Admiral had learned to recognize. It was the expression humans wore when they had found an elegant solution to an impossible problem. "They're not evil, Admiral. They're just limited in their perspective. Over the next hour, the Alliance leadership outlined a plan that was so audacious it took Admiral Zextera's breath away. Instead of preparing for war, they were going to invite the Harvester Collective to join their alliance. They were going to demonstrate that organic civilizations working together could achieve efficiency levels that surpassed any machine intelligence. The mathematical models are clear, Dr. Martinez explained during the briefing. Cooperative biological systems with proper coordination can outperform any purely mechanical approach to resource management. We just need to show them the data. And, if they refuse to listen, ask General Vorth of the Krillian Defense Forces. The Voidwalker's response was simple: then, we'll relocate them to a pocket dimension until they're ready to learn. Even machine intelligences can be taught better ways of thinking. Admiral Zextera realized that humanity had done something unprecedented in galactic history. They hadn't just changed the rules of the game, they had changed the game itself. Conflict was no longer the default response to any problem. Instead, every challenge was approached as an opportunity for cooperation and growth. As the Alliance fleets began to mobilize, not for war but for the galaxy's largest diplomatic mission, Admiral Zextera reflected on how much his life had changed. 6 months ago, he had been a warrior preparing for conquest. Now he was an explorer preparing to make friends with a force that could have been the galaxy's greatest enemy. The communication channel crackled with reports from across the galaxy. Former enemies were working together to prepare the welcome delegation. Scientists were collaborating on technologies that would demonstrate the efficiency of cooperative resource management. Artists were creating presentations that would help the harvesters understand the value of diversity and creativity. Admiral, Commander T'Challa said softly, "Do you really think this will work?" Admiral Zextera looked out at the stars, where hundreds of ships from dozens of worlds were moving together in perfect harmony toward a meeting that would determine the fate of the galaxy. 6 months ago, such cooperation would have been impossible. Now it felt natural. "Commander," he said, "6 months ago I would have said it was impossible. But I've learned something important about humans and their allies. They don't just dream of impossible things. They make them happen." As the combined fleet moved toward the edge of the galaxy, Admiral Zextera smiled. Whatever happened next, he was grateful to be part of something greater than conquest, something more powerful than fear, something that truly deserved to be called civilization. The galaxy had learned to work together. And that, he realized, made them capable of anything.